Hey all, as I usually do, I'm recording this and I'm going to post it early for those that want to go ahead and get a head start or a jump on next week's material. So again, we're going into week 6, so you're getting close out of this week 8 course, but things are moving fast. We have a practical coming up this week on muscles, and then we have the exam over the weekend. So I'm going to try to do my best to give you kind of a hint as to what you need to move through this week if you want to get a head start this weekend on it. I get that, especially if you have President's Day off and you can use that day to just jump through some material. Please do. So let's go ahead and jump into lecture. So for lecture this week, we're actually going to get into the nervous tissue. So even though lab is not going to get into the nervous system until after this practical, we're just going to go ahead and jump into some of the nervous tissue because otherwise there's just too much information left for the very last exam. So as you get into the nervous tissue here, I'm just going to pull up your lecture real quick. It's a pretty content heavy lecture, just to give you a heads up. So again, make sure that you watch my video with this. If you can take notes alongside of it, that's ideal. So it's going to go through like the functions of the nervous system and kind of the main functions of each of the nervous systems. So it's going to kind of break the nervous system down into like the central nervous system, the peripheral nervous system, and then it's going to break the peripheral nervous system down into like sensory, motor, then motor into somatic and autonomic, and then autonomic into sympathetic, parasympathetic. So don't worry, we get to that in the video, but the reason that I am mentioning this is a great overview, one that, it's not a bad idea to print this off and put that on your mirror. So that way then, you're really comfortable with that kind of organization of the nervous system, because that's going to be from here on out to the end of the semester. So I really like that diagram. That's a really nice diagram, nice overview of the nervous system. So that's how the nervous system is divided up on that slide 12. Then we get into kind of the histology of the nervous system, and we go through that. So hopefully some of that will be a review. Some of it's going to be new, especially as we get into the different types of neurons, and they're going to classify them structurally, which they do here, and then also functionally. So there's the functional classification, sensory versus motor, so interneurons. So pay attention to that because it's a little confusing. I know you're like, wait a second, there's different ways to classify these neurons. Yes, there are. So they classify them structurally by how they're built structurally, and then also by their actual function. Are they for sensory, for they motor, so on. So again, kind of pay attention to that as you go through. Then we get into the neuroglial cells, the helper cells of the nervous system. And so you're going to have to know the different types of neuroglial cells and also their functions. And then we're going to get into, I'm not giving you a lecture, I promise here. I just kind of want to show you some of the major things and give you a heads up as to what's coming up here. Then you're really going to get into the physiology of nerve conduction. And this is, again, where you have more pathways. So the pathways, again, are going to be kind of similar to, muscle contraction, in that you have those kind of step-by-step pathways. So you're going to have that too. So this is going to explain, please, don't skip through this. Please read over just the types of ion channels, and I go over them in lecture so that you know the different types of ion channels, because different types of ion channels are going to be used for different purposes, and we'll really get into that when we talk about action potentials and gradient potentials. So anyway, I know this is probably a whole lot of stuff that you're not ready for, but as you get into this, I want you to, it's going to talk about resting membrane potential. So you want to understand how you get to resting membrane potential. So you might print off this slide, put it up on your mirror. It's a good one. Okay. And watch these animations, guys. These animations are great. So you can actually open this PowerPoint, click on these boogers, and then you can watch the animations. So I really think they're very helpful for your overall kind of understanding of the processes. And then as we get into, we'll get into graded potentials and action potentials, and then talk about the differences of them. When you get into generating an action potential, this is another step-by-step process. So I wrote down the step-by-step process is going to be on slide 80 through slide 88. So it's going to give you like exactly, you know, step 1, what happens. Step 2, summary of what happens, okay? And then step 3, step 4. So this is one that I suggest, you know, you can print either this one or this one's a little bit nicer. I marked slide 99 is a good summary. So if you go here, slide 99 has a nice summary, and then you can kind of fill in the gaps as you need more information. But this is a nice summary of action potentials. Again, one that if you want to print it off, put it on your mirror. That's a good one. And then the other thing that you might, again, print off and put on your mirror would be this summary of an action potential. Hold on, I had another one. Oh, slide 90. Oops, I'm way past it. So slide 90 here, if you go to slide 90, excuse my jumping around, this is another good one, okay? So again, you know, slide 12 is a good one, I think, to print off. Slide 90, slide 99 is another good one to print off. I just think that they're nice overviews. Now, obviously, again, you can't skip like the lecture and the other material and just print off those slides and think everything's going to be okay. It's not, because you need the background information to really understand what's going on. So please don't mistake me there. You still need to watch the whole lecture. I'm just saying these are processes that take a little more memorization. And so you print those off, put them on your mirror. Okay. And then the other thing, we talk about the difference between graded potentials and action potentials. And so if you go to slide 108 and 109, these are good slides. Here's 108 and 109 for the differences between graded and action potentials. So that might be, those might be 2 other slides that you might want to print off, stick on your mirror. Okay. And then the last, don't hate me, the last process that you really have to get down is chemical synapse. So, you know how we talked about the synapse, the neuromuscular junction, where a nerve innervates a muscle? Here you have to know that step-by-step process of how the message gets passed from one neuron to the next neuron, okay? So for that, for the kind of physiology of a synapse, and the chemical synapses, there is the step-by-step process on slide 110 through 112. So that might be one, again, that you want to write down that step-by-step process. Maybe you print this off and then fill in, you know, the important information on the side, okay? So my suggestion, if it were me and I were studying, I would print this slide right here, 110, and then I would fill in and write in this extra information so that I really understood what was going on, okay? So those are kind of my hints for lecture. And then you're going to get into summation. And so you can, again, make slides on these, on neurotransmitters. Sorry, not slides, note cards. If you can make some note cards, real basic note cards on those, I think that's kind of the best way to do it. Okay, so I know that's a hefty lecture, but I like to give you a heads up that if you have President's Day off, and you can use that day to study, please do, because I know that this class just moves so quick and there is a lot of information in this nervous system lecture. So, and unfortunately I can't skip any of it because it's all stuff that you all have to know for your careers. So hang in there with me. That is lecture. So now let's get into lab. So for lab, we're staying on muscles. So let's go over here, and you do have the practical starting this Thursday. I just want to give you a heads up that the practical again opens Thursday at 4 p.m. and then I've got that down here. So it's accessible February 22nd, which is Thursday at 4 p.m. And then it runs through February 23rd at 11:59 p.m. Unfortunately, I do have a child that has some medical issues, and for him to go on a field trip that Friday, I have to go. So unfortunately, I am going to be in and out of cell reception on Friday. It will be all day from 6 a.m. to 5 p.m. So if you have any issues, Dr. Ben has told me that he will be checking the emails in case I can't get to your email for a couple hours and you have a question that like you really need answered before you jump into the practical. So I just want to give you a heads up that he's there and he's available for you on that Friday. I wanted to make sure that I had someone available for you on that Friday that you are taking the practical. But like I said, I will be checking on my, unfortunately, I'm going to be in and out on a 3-hour bus ride with fourth graders, if you can feel for me at all there. But 3 hours there and 3 hours back. And so I will only be able to like kind of check when I get cell reception and things like that. But after 5 p.m., then I'm golden. I can check and take care of all of the emails. Okay. Dr. Ben will actually also be grading this round of practicals, just to give you a heads up if you have kind of questions on grading. Okay, now let me really quick get into studying, more importantly, for this practical. So this week you are supposed to be doing the lower appendage. So sorry, I had a little blip with my computer there, but I want to go ahead and pull up how I am actually going to teach, or how I would if I had you in person teach the muscles of the thigh. And mainly because the muscles of the thigh are a little bit like the muscles of the forearm. There's a lot of them and they just seem kind of overwhelming. So I'm going to show you my method for kind of how I would initially teach you how to go through those. Now really quick, I do need to make sure that you remember 2 things. So please keep in mind that when you're talking about the leg, and especially, sorry, I'm gonna have to move that down just a little bit, the leg, and especially when you're talking about the thigh versus the leg, when we're talking about flexion, they mean 2 very different things. So flexion of the thigh, this is going to be flexion of the thigh, okay? Then extension of the thigh, and then hyperextension is here, okay? If you say flexion of the leg, we're going to assume, and sorry, I can't do this without doing flexion of the thigh, but we're going to assume flexion of the leg here, okay? So flexion of the leg is really flexion of the lower leg at the knee, okay? If you say flexion of the leg. So be really careful, because if you're talking about a muscle that does flexion of the thigh and you put flexion of the leg, it's going to be wrong, because flexion of the leg means here, flexion at the knee, okay? And then this is extension of the leg at the knee. And you can even put at the knee if you want to help yourself remember that. So keep in mind those are those 2 terms. So be really careful with differentiating flexion of the thigh and flexion of the leg, okay? Excuse my messy house. We have science fair going on here. So, but anyway, so let me walk you through how to do the muscles. I apologize because this gave me the best view, but I hate these boxes sometimes. They get in my way as I'm going through this, but it gave me all of the views so I can show you how you can actually go all the way around with your muscles, just like I showed you with the forearm, okay? So I always start with a landmark muscle, and I like to start with the adductor magnus. It's a medial muscle, and it's kind of this big flat kind of muscle here, so it's easy to identify. You can also look for the sartorius muscle. The sartorius muscle runs across the anterior surface of the thigh, which is kind of nice because it's another really easy landmark muscle to start with. But I just like to start with the adductor muscle and work my way around. So here's the adductor magnus, okay? Here, this muscle is the gracilis. Okay, and it's a nice long muscle. And then right next to it on its insertion, so here the gracilis, is going to insert right next to the sartorius. So here's the sartorius muscle. And the sartorius muscle, again, is going to run across here. I will give you a hint in just a minute on the action for the sartorius. Then as you work your way around, you're going to get into the quadriceps femoris muscles. So, or we call them the quads, the quadriceps. So there's going to be 4 of those muscles that you have to know. It's going to be the vastus medialis, which is going to be, again, the most medial. So we're on the medial side here. Then you're going to have rectus femoris, which again is kind of running up and down, hence rectus. And then the femoris is to tell you that it's right above the femur, okay? So rectus femoris. Then we have vastus lateralis. And then underneath, if you were to pull the rectus femoris off, we have the vastus intermedius. And so those 4 muscles, you should know that those 4 muscles make up the quadriceps, or what we call the quads. So again, vastus medialis, vastus lateralis, and rectus femoris, and then the vastus intermedius underneath, okay? So all 4 of those muscles make up the hamstrings. As we're working our way around here, so again, we're just working our way around. Adductor magnus, gracilis, here's sartorius, okay? Here's vastus medialis. Now we go rectus femoris. Now vastus lateralis. And then I know the vastus intermedius is underneath there. I just kind of skip over it as I'm going around. And then we have here the tensor fasciae lati. And the tensor fasciae lati is going to insert on the tibia via the IT band, the iliotibial band. So you can look for this iliotibial band as you're working your way around the posterior side on your models, okay? So there's your tensor fasciae lati muscle with its IT band. Here's the IT band. Now we're working our way around. Here we have the hamstrings now, and there's 3 muscles to the hamstrings. Biceps femoris, semitendinosus, and then semimembranosus, which inserts kind of right next to it. The semimembranosus is kind of a big muscle, and it runs kind of underneath that semitendinosus. So I always say, you know, go through and look at this portion of it, semitendinosus, and then you can see this little section here is the semimembranosus, okay? And the reason that I like to show you that way is that it inserts, if you can see, it inserts just a medial of that semitendinosus, so you can remember semimembranosus has an M, it's going to insert more medial, so M medial. And the hamstrings, again, are going to be made up of those 3 muscles, biceps femoris, semitendinosus, and semimembranosus, okay? And then you're going to just keep working your way around again. Then go back around. Here's adductor magnus right here. So go ahead, go adductor magnus, then we go gracilis, then we go sartorius, then we go vastus medialis, then we go your rectus femoris, vastus lateralis, tensor fasciae lati with its IT band here that you see here. Then you go biceps femoris, semitendinosus, semimembranosus, and you're back at adductor magnus again. So you just kind of keep going around. And that's a good way for you to really kind of get your bearings with those muscles and get really familiar with those muscles as you're going around. So hopefully that helps you. My last hint for you is on the sartorius muscle. If you want to remember the actions of the sartorius muscle, I think the easiest way to remember the actions is sartorius is tree pose, okay? So to get, oops, sorry, let's go the wrong way there. And to get to tree pose, you have to flex the thigh, right, at the hip here. You have to flex the leg at the knee here. And then you're going to have to laterally rotate at the thigh here, okay? So those are the 3 actions of the sartorius. It's tree pose, okay, to get you to tree pose. So again, flexion of the thigh, flexion of the leg, lateral rotation at the thigh, okay, get you to tree pose. So hopefully that will help you. You don't have to memorize all of the actions to sartorius, you just have to know tree pose, okay? All right, I hope that helps you guys out. If you have any questions, please email me. I would be happy to set up a time with you to go over the muscles, and we can do it via Zoom or Google Meet, whatever works best for you. So please reach out to me. And again, keep in mind that on that Friday, I will be kind of in and out of cell reception. So I won't be able to do Zoom meetings until after 5 that Friday. All right, take care and happy studying.